So everybody, this is my follow-up video to my last two paranormal videos where I talked about four different experiences. My very first experience that I can remember seeing an entity, being healed by Mother Ann Seton, and seeing Jesus Christ, and of course that entity that saved my life. Uh, I took down some notes. I went through the videos and said, oh, I could probably elaborate a little more on that. And I also had a lot of support from people. A few people in my YouTube community, as well as some people that, saw the video and were like, dude, that's awesome. That's awesome. I did not expect the support I got from people. I did not expect that support. So I thank you all for showing me support. I figured by going more public with all of this stuff, I would see more naysayers than I would anything else. But I'm shocked by how much support I've gotten from this. So thank you. Thank you, everybody that have shown me support. I'll get started here. Like I said, I had a bunch of questions from people. Like, what was it like growing up with the paranormal, and how did it affect me, especially after my first experience? Where my first experience, you can go back and watch the video. That first video really wasn't that good. But my first experience, I was at my great grandmother's funeral. I was 6 years old and walked out to the car, and an old lady basically appeared to me. Stern face, white hair, pearls. Looked at me like, were you supposed to be here, or what are you doing, young man? Type of thing. And I screamed and she vanished. So I was 6 years old. I didn't understand what had just happened, and I didn't say anything to anybody because I didn't think anybody would believe me. I just kind of thought, well, what's the point in bringing it up if nobody's going to believe me? I grew up differently than most, so I was a loner growing up mostly. I kept to myself. I had a few close friends. I'm still very much like that today. I have a few close friends, and well, just keep to myself. I'm very social at work, but after work, I'm more introverted. But I was a loner growing up, and I was only six. I didn't understand what had happened. It wasn't until later when I started opening up more about my paranormal stuff to my grandmother that she explained to me. She's like, "Oh, you're clairvoyant, Matthew. You had experiences before that." She talked about me, talking about past lives and everything, and stuff that a normal, 3 or 4 year old doesn't talk about. And so I mean, it wasn't until I was older, a few years later, when I started coming out talking to my grandmother about it. And when I was younger, I thought everybody had experiences like this. I thought everybody, you know, saw and talked to dead people. And then my grandmother was like, no, not everybody has paranormal experiences, Matthew. And no, not everybody's clairvoyant. We all have a sensitivity to us, but not everybody's as sensitive as you. So, uh, how did it affect me growing up? Other than, I just thought it was normal. It didn't affect me too much. Like I said, I had a different home life than most, and I go through all of that more in detail in my book. And I started writing in my book again. Yay me. So once I get my book finished and published, you'll be able to read more about that. But did it really affect me growing up other than being a different person? Not really affect me negatively or anything. I've just, I was always able to see things differently. I was more wise. I always liked to hang out with the adults more than the children. I always thought my friends were more childish than I was, to be honest. And I was just a different person. I'm still a different person. I see things differently. So, affect me wise growing up? Not really. Things would attach themselves to me. I would see things that others wouldn't. You know, lamps and street lights, going out if I walked by them, or seeing the wind. Yes, I saw the wind. I don't talk about that much either. I didn't add that one to my book anyway, either one of those. But, stuff like that where people could be like, oh, you're just imagining all this stuff. I've just always been able to see things differently. And the biggest thing, like when I was a child, I had people I didn't even know look at me and go, you're an older soul. You're an older soul. And, when I was a kid and still to this day, I just know things. That's part of being a sensitive clairvoyant. You're just different like that. So did it affect me growing up? Not really. Not really. Maybe in ways that other people would be like, wow, yeah, that's totally different, Matthew. But to me, it was normal. To me, it's everyday stuff. So again, it didn't really affect me in a negative way or really a positive way either. It was just normal everyday life for me growing up. So again, I elaborate a little bit more of that in my book, and again, I'm working on getting that written. I started writing more. I took down a lot of notes for it. So I'll move on to my mother Ann Seton experience where I was healed at her Catholic church. So this is going to get a little deeper here. Obviously, the seeing Jesus one's going to be a bit deeper. I had a question. Why didn't it get me closer to Christianity or Catholicism? Well, the simple answer is I'm very cynical. I do not believe Jesus Christ is my personal Savior. I believe Jesus is one of many religious figures that God's put on this planet to help us all maybe understand death or understand religion or understand our own beliefs. There are numerous religious figures on this planet that we can look up to find God. Not everybody has the same mind frame. If we all had the same view on religion, we would all believe in one religion. There's thousands of different religions. So I think Jesus is a great person to emulate. I'm just very cynical. I don't think he's our Lord and Savior. That's just who I am, especially with all these experiences I've had. I grew up in the Catholic Church. I mean, we weren't really good Catholics, so I feel deeply connected to Catholicism. I feel deeply connected to Catholicism, but I'm more of a spiritualist. I believe in past lives. I obviously believe in other clairvoyance since I am one. So that's why. One of the other things is I've only been to Christian sites. I could go to other religious sites, and have experiences there. Again, that's just something else I talk about in my book. A lot of the stuff comes from the book I'm writing. So, I mean, I could go to Israel to a Jewish site and have an experience. I could go to India to a Buddhist site and have an experience. I don't know. I've never had the chance to do that yet. So that's why. That's why. And the fact of there are hundreds of, if not thousands of other religious figures that were put on this planet to help us find God. So, again, my own personal beliefs, I believe in past lives. I've had a lot of past life experience. That past lives was one of the very first things I started talking about when I was younger. Like when I was, first started to talk at the age of 3, I would talk about past experiences that I had in other lives. So, again, that's why. I've had so many experiences that can contradict Christianity or contradict being Jewish or whatever. So that's why. So how does my mother Ann experience being healed affect me today? Well, I can tell you this right now. It obviously made me way more spiritual. It helped me with my spirituality. I mean, shoot, I wear her medal. I got a statue of her. So that's how it affects me because I was deeply healed. I've always had problems with anxiety, and for 24 hours plus, I didn't have any worries. I could actually sleep. I have a sleep issue. I slept soundly. I feel a deeper inner peace and inner healing that I never felt before. So, of course, it moved me. Of course, it made me more spiritual, but it didn't really get me closer to Christianity. You know, the thing that I struggle with the most right now with it is why did she choose to heal me when there are far other people that are worse off that deserve to be healed? Far more devout people. That's what I struggle with more than anything. You know, did she show it? Did she heal me to show me that, Christianity is right? No, no, I don't think that. I think she did it to say, you know what, Matthew, you need a little bit of peace and comfort, and that God will always be here for you and for others. So, um, I'm still really on this journey. Like I said, I'm more of a spiritualist, but I like Catholicism. That's what I'm used to. But I'm more a spiritualist. It's still a journey. I think we all have journeys that get molded throughout our life. Things happen in our everyday lives where you become either more spiritual or more religious, or something happens where you become less religious and less spiritual. So it's still a journey. We all have our own spiritual journey. All of us do, whether you're a believer or not. So that's how it affects me today. It's gotten me closer to my own spiritualness. It's got me own spirit. It's got me that much closer. It's one of the reasons why I started making this content. It's one of the reasons why I started writing my book. And I go into more detail, obviously, in that. But yeah, it's made me more spiritual. It's just made me way more spiritual. So I'll move on to how the entity saved my life. So I've always had things attach themselves to me, and it's a different feeling. It's a heaviness, and it's that, oh my gosh, something's attached to me. Oh my God. The best way that I can describe it is when you're in a crowded room and you feel kind of cramped or whatever. It's kind of a feeling like that something's really close to you, something's attached to you. You get that uncomfortable feeling. Sometimes it's uncomfortable, sometimes it's very positive, and then other times it can be very negative. So that's kind of like what it feels like. It feel it can be suppressive at times, and like I said, the best way to describe it is how you feel in a crowded room sometimes. I've recreated this experience because it's hard to fathom having an entity save you. I was running up my steps two at a time, and my full weight was going backwards. And I've tried to recreate this, and it's hard to recreate because as much as my weight balance was falling backwards, I could fall and hurt myself. But I've recreated it numerous times. I didn't have there's still, and on those steps, there's still no banister to grab onto if you fall. That's the other thing. There is no banister. I could take you down there right now and show you that there is no banister. We actually tried putting up a banister on those steps a while back and never got to it. So, there's no banister or anything to grab onto. It's just a regular staircase that I was running 2 steps at a time, and my right foot or my right foot toes caught the edge, and my foot was dangling out there, and I started wobbling back and was like, oh my God, I'm gonna die. And then all of a sudden somebody just went, stabilized me, and then pushed me forward, and my other foot, my left foot, once they stabilized me, was able to find the step to stop it. So it's incredible. It's incredible. the entity that was with me, she was with me for a very long time, and I go over that in my last video. Um, I was in shock after it happened. A lot of my paranormal experiences, I sit there and just kind of stare blankly and go, "Wow, that just happened." And I've had so many different experiences, so many deep, meaningful experiences, so many things happen where you just can't explain that. It's just normal, everyday life for me. So when stuff like that happens, I just kind of stare blankly and go, well, that just happened. That's just another experience. So it's just normal life for me. It's just normal life. So I just, I really, like I said, I think about that girl a lot still. I hope she was able to find her peace and pass over. Um, I hope she's not stuck in a purgatory. See, that's the other thing I believe. There's three different planes of existence. There's the earthly plane, which us alive people live in. There's a sort of purgatory between heaven and earth, and then there's the heaven plane. Most of the entities are stuck in purgatory. It's kind of like a wilderness. It's kind of like a wilderness where, well, honestly, to tell you from my experiences, entities and whatnot just kind of run amok. That's the reality of it. They all just kind of run amok and get to do whatever they want. It's kind of scary. Heaven intervenes sometimes, but when you're stuck in purgatory, it's like a wilderness and you run amok. But one of the questions I had is why do I think about this so much still after it's happened? A lot of experiences just have a lasting effect. I mean, she saved my life. And it's just, some of these experiences have a life-lasting effect on you. She saved my life. Of course I'm going to remember her. She saved my life. If you all had something like that happen to you, I'm sure you would probably understand better. But some of these experiences that I've had, it's just a lasting effect that you'll never forget. A lot of people in the paranormal community have had similar experiences that have made an impact on their life. It makes them want more. It makes them search for more. It makes them ask more questions to find more evidence or whatever. It just has that deep, lasting effect on you. It has me. A lot of entities that attach themselves to me, I can feel their pain and their hurt. That has a lasting effect. Once you feel somebody's pain or suffering or what they went through or how they died, it takes a toll on you. It's taken a toll on me. There's been times after experiences where I'm like, I need to take a step back from the paranormal because of it. There's one experience that I'll be talking about in a future video where it completely made me be, well, it made me step away from the paranormal for a while because it was such a bad experience. And it got me to the point where I wanted nothing to do with the paranormal. I saw my gift as a curse. It's not been until recently that I've started looking at my gift more positively. So a lot of experiences can affect you like that, both positive and negatively. Some of the entities that attach themselves to me, you grow close to. You grow close to. Like the entity that saved my life, I kind of grew close to her. Like I talk in my last video. There were times where I mentioned how she basically stuck to the bathroom, which I'm still kind of confused on why she stuck to the bathroom, but there were times where I would go into the bathroom, sit down for hours at a time, and just contemplate life, and felt her there with me. So you grow close to some of these entities, especially the ones that attach themselves to you and stay attached to you. You know, there's been times where I've asked entities to detach themselves to me, and they do. But some are just like, I like you too much. So you grow kind of close to them. You grow close to them. A lot of them, especially with me, they attach themselves to me because they want their stories told. They want their stories told. Outside of the paranormal stuff, I got into doing find a grave photos, taking photos for find a grave, and helping people with their genealogy. And I've always been super close to history. And my love of history comes and stems from the paranormal, because I get entities from, you know, hundreds of years ago that attach themselves to me. And I get to feel what it was like, what their lives were like. And they just want their story told. They just want their story told just like everybody else. So I grow close to them. It's just that personal. And to be very honest with you, why I think she stuck attached to me for as long as she did was because I just think she needed a friend. I'm a magnet. I'm a beacon to spirits and entities, and some of them in the real world didn't have friends, or they were lonely and whatnot, and some of them just needed a friend. And I think that's what it was like for her. She just needed a friend. So, moving on here, I'll go to my seeing Christ. my seeing Christ experience. This is a doozy, isn't it? It's a doozy. I only shared it with a couple of people. And like I said in my last video, the youth minister I shared it with just kind of stared blankly at me. And I was like, well, if that's how he reacts to it, then I bet everybody else is going to react to it. Thank God I had my best friend Kyle with me. Kyle would later go on to be my best man at my at my first wedding. Um, Kyle was notorious for being present with me when paranormal experiences happened, but he being aloof to it. Like one time he was sucking face with a girlfriend while I sat back and watched a door open and close by itself. He he's just notorious for being present with me when it happens and then going, oh man, I missed it again, darn. But poor Kyle. Let's see. The big thing about seeing Christ that really affected me more than anything, again, it didn't really get me closer to Christ or closer to some kind of religion. Like I said, I'm a spiritualist more than anything. I love Catholicism, but I'm a spiritualist. But you want to know the biggest thing that I got out of seeing Christ? Was that he was just an average person. How I saw him, he was just an average person. You see these crucifixes or crosses that have him on there, and he's this tall, handsome, ripped, got muscles and abs like he does 1,000 sit-ups a day and bench presses the cross and so on and so on. When I saw him, he was just an average person. I would say 5'6", bushy brown hair, kind of a fuller face. Nothing like how some of the pictures you see online or crucifixes or paintings. It's nothing like it. He's just an average person. I'm glad he smiled at me. But that's the biggest thing that I got out of it, was he was just an average person. He didn't have some halo around his head. He didn't have some white lights surrounding him. And I saw him one other time too after a friend passed away. I'll go into that experience later on in another video as well. But just an average person. Which honestly, if you think about it, made me kind of grow closer to Christ in that way, was just seeing him as an average person. So that was the biggest effect on me more than anything. The biggest one. Uh, I had people ask, well, you were by sliding doors. Maybe you saw a reflection. It was evening time. There was no light coming through. Trust me, I tried to debunk it. I couldn't. One of the other things is Kyle and I, after this experience, went through pictures, and I found a picture similar to what I had saw. I wish I would have kept that picture, but this was back when I was like 16 or 17. I tell you that seeing Christ has given things a little bit more of a deeper meaning. That's when I started talking about this and writing about it and sharing it a little more has really helped me with the deeper meaning of everything, the deeper meaning of being clairvoyant. So I'm going to finish up here. And one of the other main questions that I've gotten is, why have I seen my gift as a curse? And the easy answer is, I'm just never left alone. You ever have a nagging feeling, or a friend nags you, or your spouse nags you? It's kind of like that. It's just a constant nag sometimes. The other big thing is you can get hurt physically, mentally, get hurt. And that's happened to me. That's happened to me. I've gotten hurt by the paranormal, negatively. And it's being more sensitive and open to that sort of thing scares me sometimes. Even with all of my experiences, it still scares me at times, knowing what more negative entities can do to you. When you see people getting hurt on ghost hunting shows or whatever, some of that might be for entertainment purposes, but it can really happen. You can really get hurt by the paranormal. And it still scares me to this day. What can happen? There's been times where I've been abruptly awoken from a good sleep, from an entity going, or a spirit going, hey, I want to talk to you. I see that you can talk to me. I see that you can see me. It can be a curse at times. Even if you see it as a more positive gift, it can still be a curse at times. So that's the best way to describe it. At least on here. Like I said, I go through a lot more of this stuff in my book that I'm writing, and I promise you all, I'm writing as much as I can when I can to get it finished. I had a bunch of notes that I'm being able to add now. I can probably double my book now because of it. So again, I go into far more detail in my book. There's far more details about my personal beliefs in my book. There's far more details about the meaning of some of my experiences in my book. And again, I'll get that published as soon as I can. I just have to write more and get it edited. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up, guys. I was worried that this video wasn't going to be as good as the last one, and it might not be, but at least you guys are getting a little bit more understanding of me, a little bit more about my beliefs. And if you have more questions about my beliefs or some of the experiences I talk about, please leave a comment and let me know, because I'll go over them in follow-up videos like this. It's fun to talk about. It's therapeutic to talk about. So if you have more questions, don't be afraid to ask. I'll answer them to the best of my ability. So, again, guys, thank you for your love and support. Hit that subscribe button and hit that bell button so you know when I go live and post videos. That's how you promote small content makers like myself. And I hope you guys have a good rest of your week. I'll be posting another gaming video on Wednesday and Friday as well. I hope you all have a good rest of your week and hit that subscribe button. Have a good night, guys.